How's it going, guys? Welcome back to my market analysis videos, and I'm going to start off today with Bitcoin and where it looks like we are within this trading range. And I haven't made any updates as of recent. I'll show you what position I'm in currently, one position, and I genuinely haven't touched it during the volatility, and nothing really to update on until this point. And pretty much we've been stuck within this range for the past 70 odd days, and in terms of finding a low here, there are a few things to consider, and the risk of downside is still quite prevalent. However, the opportunity of having a pivot here is also on the cards. According to this channel that's been held up this entire cycle, the low should be in somewhere, and I believe if we hold and can pivot around this 85 region, and I did mention previously that we could draw down from the 108 down to the 20% drawdown level, which was marked this entire time, and we have tapped that level just yesterday. So should we see a cycle low, a local cycle low here, and a push up to the upside, we could potentially have that bottom occur soon, according to this channel. However, that's not to say that there are risks involved currently in holding onto any leverage positions, right? And as mentioned in previous videos, we're drawing out the 1618 level that is projected from the bottom of each of these ranges, and pretty much we've cleanly cleared the 1618 level here, well, cleanly touched, and we've retraced back. Generally what we see is a retracement back to the 1 level of the measurement before it bounces back up, right? From here it touches here and it bounces back up. From here it bounces but fails, and this is sort of a situation that I think we're in at the moment. From here it sort of doesn't get to the 1618 level, but at least goes back to the 1 level and then bounces back up to that local 1618, if I'm not mistaken here. Yeah, local 1618. And right now we're in a situation similar to either this section or this section, right? And why these two scenarios are similar in a certain way is because they both breach the 1 level. One of these is I guess reactive in the sense that it does move in the other direction, and it doesn't extend as far down as this, down to these current highs. So should there be a bottom, we either want it now, or there could be an extension all the way to this trend line, or at least that 6.42% level down here, which means Bitcoin could see the price extend down all the way to fill out the no support area here down to the 72k level at least, right? Should that happen, there will be more pain to occur in the altcoins, and we'll see Bitcoin dominance start to increase further. I don't know why this isn't charted correctly, but I'll chuck this in here. Something that we've seen as of recent as well is this 0618 level has still held, right? It has still held, and I do think it looks quite similar to this, where there is a higher high marked and a rejection of some sorts, and also a divergence, right, on the RSI, right? There's a slope down, which means this could have been the absolute bottom for this bullish altcoin rally, right? It could be the start, is what I mean by that. However, let's break back to the daddy of altcoins, and that is Ethereum. And what we see here is clear breakdown of this long-standing trend line that has been created since the start of this bull rally, in actually even earlier than when Bitcoin started rallying in June 2022, right? And it's broken down. And generally when you see breakdowns in Ethereum's trend, it usually is not a good signal, especially for the wider market, only because breakdown in trends tend to produce larger downtrends, right? This is another good example of the Ethereum trend going down from the 2018 bull market, right? The bear market from 2018. And then once it breaks the trend, it extends down quite far, right? Let me remove some of these drawings. They might be a little bit messy. And this could produce something like that, right? It's not impossible. So what we want to see is either a range that pops back up or an immediate reaction here that gets it well above that trend line again and moving towards the upside. So the answer to, I guess, which way are we going to go is, it's hard to say. But if you've been holding, especially spot, now would not be a good time to sell, because the potential for this to turn around is still there. However, would I enter the market? The answer to that is probably not until there's confirmation of a continued uptrend, right? So if this reclaims this level, that would kind of give me a bit more confidence that alts are likely to rally, because there's a inverse correlation with the BTC dominance and Ethereum. Now, for something that I'm currently in, and I've got a long that's been, and I held right through, I removed my stops right through this intense wick. This position's approximately 110,000 US dollars, and I held through this giant downside wick. And from the top, that went down a total of almost 70%, right? And Tau has actually broken out of this channel, but it's sort of fighting for a position to remain within this channel. And channels are very, very common to be held in altcoin rallies, even with Ethereum's initial rally in 2017. Let me have a look over here. As you can see here, a large channel is created and it holds within that channel. And I can use another example in Cardano within that type of same period as well. It actually breaks out of the top of the channel. That's when you know a asset within the market cycle is bullish. And right now we're on either the precipice of an upside move or a complete breakdown and starting a new bigger range or downside trend and end of the market type feeling, right? Let's go to the S&P 500. As noted from previous videos, let me go to a chart with all the fibs attached, and perhaps you've already drawn these on your chart so you can follow along on the weekly. As you can see from previous cycles, I get the range created, the largest swing created from the bear market, and project out a Fibonacci range and 1618 or the 618 level, timing wise, meaning within the 18-year cycle that is tagged, is often the top of that market, right? So here 4618, previously 1618, right? And what we're approaching here is the 2618, possibly at the end of this cycle. Otherwise, it would sort of shoot above here and be within this range, which seems unlikely, right? We're within the last year of this bull market, and I do think that should the market pop up, it sort of comes around this level, the 6.4-ish, maybe 6.5-ish range, and it struggles, and that's when things start to go pear-shaped and possibly down, all the way down to the lows of 2023, right? Or the end of 2022. So maybe go like this, and then there's a large sell-off, and it will be the start of a similar cycle that you've seen during the dot-com and GFC in the 1969s, just sideways stagnation, and also obviously the Great Depression, and that's sort of the era that we are possibly in. What else do I have? MSTR. MSTR is something that I've been watching quite closely as well, and it often is a leading indicator, or it leads price action for Bitcoin. So something that we would like to see now, and similar to previous cycle, and why I make a comparison between now and this part of the USDT dominance chart is because it is sectored off right here, right? And you can see that that area is depicted here, right? And we're sort of producing a similar pattern, and I sort of thought that this would occur as well with MSTR, and that it had topped at this level, and any movement in Bitcoin to the downside, the beta is quite high, meaning there is a multiple magnitude move in comparison to what Bitcoin does. So Bitcoin moves like 1%, it will move 2, 3, 4, 5% downwards, right? However, it is true to the upside as well. So should we see MSTR set in another rally like so? I'll just use a green line as an example, right? I don't think MSTR makes a new all-time high, but I do believe Bitcoin makes a new all-time high. We might see Bitcoin fall down and then push back up. I don't know how deep that is. It's more of a timing thing, and I believe we're sort of within that timing bracket where we can have a final push to complete this full Elliott wave that Bitcoin has been creating since the start of 2023, right? So similar to here, MSTR bottoms, Bitcoin might range at the bottom, and it pushes up in a final push, and we might actually go lower. We actually might even go down to the high to mid 70s, and won't even sweep these highs because people are front running the Bitcoin price, right? And then it does its final move maybe to $150,000 or even lower, and then the cycle's ended. However, in saying that, I think within the final rally of the cycle, that's when we get our parabolic moves within the altcoin, I guess, well, select altcoins, not all altcoins, because there's such a large dilution of altcoins in comparison to previous cycles. So you've got to be quite selective with what you're choosing to buy. And it's either industry winners so far in the likes of, I think OM Mantra DAO has been performing extremely well this entire cycle. If you continue to bet on Mantra DAO has moved up 35,000% since the end of 2023, and it hasn't gone down despite any negative price action in the market. Even Sui, right? Sui's performed quite well throughout this cycle, just continues to move up. And in my case, I have a position in BitTensor, which originated back here, but I did buy in around between the $50 and $60 range, right? Averaged in my spot bags, and that was complete exposure. And if you couldn't pick out, there's not only going to be one winner, obviously, but in terms of the logic behind selecting altcoins, you want to select a narrative which and it's always a bet, that has the highest probability of being a sector that moves upwards. And the logic behind buying BitTensor is one, the previous cycle, only infrastructure projects reached a $40 billion market cap. The narrative for AI is, it goes across all markets. So not only in crypto, but also traditional finance. So the mind share there is great in comparison to, say, DeFi, right, which is an old narrative and people don't care for it as much. Obviously, some DeFi projects will pop off, but if you know a sector is going to be strong because it's new and it's growing, that probably gives you a higher chance of selecting a winner, right? So you go into that sector, and I looked at BitTensor to begin with, and I saw that it was the only strong infrastructure project that was likely to succeed in this cycle. And at the start, there's no consensus, meaning that not everybody agrees on that idea, and there's not a lot of liquidity as well. So there's a lot of risk involved in that bet. However, should your fundamental analysis be sound? Is it disruptive technology? Is it required? Is it scalable? Are the tokenomics good? And answer those questions yourself, and being able to make an educated guess, because that's what it is at the end of the day, you're able to make that bet, right? And how do you know this? And it's completely through experience in the markets and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't. And that's why I recommend people to not participate in crypto, because in order to learn how to make those decisions, you're going to need to make mistakes. And those mistakes will kind of lay out the framework in your mind on how to break projects down more effectively, because you don't want to get burnt again, right? So now, what in terms of price predictions do we have for BitTensor and like potential growth, and what are we looking for? At the start of the cycle, I was saying all along that we have potential 150,000 to 180,000, and I've marked this since the start of the cycle, measured out, right? And whatever that price ends up being, or around that area, that's the area that I'll probably take profit on the likes of BitTensor, right? And this could be anywhere. But if we were to, I guess, utilize some mathematics and say that the price of, I'm doing this off the top of my head, so apologies if the actual numbers themselves aren't correct. However, I believe that they should be more or less correct. The price of Bitcoin gets up to 150,000 ish, and that gives Bitcoin a 3.5 to $4 trillion market cap. And previous cycles we saw 1.16% of the actual crypto valuation pour into altcoins, right? And if we use that, we saw that previous cycle, the top 10 to 20, so not within the top 10, but 10 to 20 market caps averaged a $40 billion market cap. So if we extrapolate that data and then we bring it over to this cycle, that number would be significantly bigger, right? So you could safely assume here that the 10 to 20 top coins within this market will at least hit $40 billion, right? Or more, by a multiple. Might also need to consider the dilution as well of this market, and the potential liquidity missing from altcoins, and perhaps there might be the concentration of liquidity which swarms into the winning projects, but generally that's not the case, and people will look for smaller bets in terms of like meme coins and things with higher upside and lower liquidity plays, because that's all that they have to bet with, right? And that makes sense as well, and that's why we saw the I guess major drop in Solana and the likes because of the influx of meme coins on Pump Fun and pretty much just a bunch of cabals like rug pulling, you know, newbies in the market and each other. And that has really drained the liquidity out the rest of the market. So, in my opinion, the participation of meme coiners has negatively impacted the industry and has drawn a lot of attention away from actual use cases that are beneficial. With that being said, that doesn't mean that the distribution of liquidity won't occur later on within the cycle, because the actual attention brought into crypto will be already is actually institutional, but also in terms of people wanting to invest in the industry on strong projects, there will be an appetite for that should there be big winners within the market in the likes of Bitcoin, right? Like that's just the natural course of things, and there'll be, marketing around it, there'll be news around it, and the likes. Happens every single cycle, and there is always a risk of things going to zero still. That it doesn't guarantee it will happen this cycle. This cycle, it could just be that the liquidity is on the ETF side and it never trickles back down into the altcoins. I think one more thing to consider is that with ETFs also surging, well, inserting themselves into the market in the likes of Ethereum, Solana as well, potentially getting an ETF in the future. Should that occur and bring the prices of those assets up, the holders on the native side, the crypto native side, will also benefit from that, and people are naturally going to gamble that money and try to inflate those numbers and bet on smaller tokens. So things to consider here before we say it's all over. There are levels that are very, very important here in terms of Bitcoin. If we see the loss of the $70,000 region, probably not a good sign, probably over, or at least going to be down for a long time. We do want to see the price go up soon from this point. And if I were to take my bets are already on the table. You can see my position on BitTensor and why I've positioned there. Hopefully this has sort of given you guys an idea of where my head is at in the market. Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Just have to wait and see. It's very difficult to determine at this point, but there is a lot of risk, more risk in comparison to what was at, down at $30,000 and $40,000. So hopefully that's been helpful, guys. Cheers, and see you in the next one. Let me know what you guys want to hear about, maybe other coins and stuff, in the comments. Cheers.